Exposed Hollywood pulls back the curtain on the glittering lights and star-studded red carpets to reveal the painful truths the world rarely dares to confront. In this video, 25 most tragic deaths of black celebrities in Hollywood, we honor the legendary stars whose brilliance lit up our lives, yet whose journeys ended far too soon. From iconic singers whose voices defined generations to trailblazing actors who shattered barriers in an unforgiving industry, their heartbreaking stories remind us of one haunting reality: fame cannot protect anyone from tragedy. These aren't just tales of stardom. They are stories of sacrifice, struggle, and the heavy price of living under Hollywood's relentless spotlight. So, if you're ready to uncover the hidden truths behind the headlines, stay with us, because at Exposed Hollywood, we reveal the side of fame that few ever dare to speak about. Lisa "Left Eye" Lopez, the fiery rebel whose journey ended too soon. She wasn't just a member of TLC, she was its heartbeat, its spark, its chaos, and its genius. Alongside T-Boz and Chili, she gave the world unforgettable anthems, Waterfalls, No Scrubs, Creep, songs that pushed TLC to more than 65 million records sold worldwide. But behind the diamond records and flashing cameras, Lisa's life was a storm. She battled inner demons, stumbled through failed relationships, and made tabloid headlines after setting her boyfriend's mansion ablaze in a moment of rage. Every victory was chased by heartbreak. In search of peace, Lisa turned to spiritual healing in Honduras, convinced she could rewrite her story. But fate was merciless. On April 25, 2002, just days after her 30th birthday, Lisa was driving down a lonely road when she swerved to dodge a speeding truck. Her SUV spun violently, flipping again and again before crashing into a massive tree. Metal screamed, glass exploded, and within seconds, her life was slipping away. Lisa, not wearing a seatbelt, was thrown from the vehicle. Witnesses described the scene like a nightmare playing out in slow motion. What made it eerier was the haunting foreshadow. Days earlier, Lisa had accidentally struck and killed a young boy in another incident. Now, her own life ended with brutal suddenness, as if destiny had already written the final chapter. In that moment, the world didn't just lose a superstar. It lost a restless spirit, a rebel poet whose creativity, vulnerability, and fire made her unforgettable. Lisa "Left Eye" Lopez was frozen in time at just 30 years old, leaving behind an unfillable void and a legacy that still burns bright. Aaliyah, the final flight of the R&B princess. Aaliyah Dana Houghton wasn't just a singer, she was the heartbeat of R&B, a shining star whose light seemed destined to last forever. With timeless hits like Try Again, Are You That Somebody, and One in a Million, she didn't just top the charts, she defined an era. Her angelic voice, natural beauty, and effortless style made her more than a music icon. She was the future of film, fashion, and artistry itself. By 2001, Aaliyah's career was soaring higher than ever. Her self-titled album Aaliyah had solidified her as a powerhouse, and her chilling performance in Queen of the Damned promised a Hollywood future just beginning to unfold. But fate had a cruel twist in store. On August 25, 2001, after filming an exhausting music video in the Bahamas, Aaliyah boarded a small plane with 8 others. None of them could have imagined that this short trip would become their final journey. Just moments after takeoff, the aircraft, overloaded and piloted by someone unqualified, shuddered violently. In an instant, it lost control, plunging to the ground and exploding in flames. The wreckage silenced a voice that millions adored. Aaliyah, only 22 years old, was gone. The world mourned not just a singer, but a promise: dreams unwritten, roles unplayed, songs unsung. Her death sparked outrage over the recklessness and negligence that cut her life short, but more than that, it carved an irreplaceable emptiness into the hearts of her fans. Aaliyah was a light too brilliant for this world, extinguished far too soon. Even today, her music whispers through generations, reminding us of the princess who redefined R&B and whose final flight broke the world's heart. Kobe Bryant, the devastating fall of the Black Mamba, and his beloved daughter. Kobe wasn't just an NBA legend with 5 championships and 2 finals MVPs. He was a once-in-a-generation force, a relentless competitor, and even an Oscar-winning storyteller with his short film Dear Basketball. His life seemed untouchable, destined for greatness beyond the hardwood, until the morning of January 26, 2020. The skies over Los Angeles were thick with fog as Kobe, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others boarded a helicopter headed to a youth basketball game. Mid-flight, the chopper shook violently, its engine shrieking before plunging helplessly into the Calabasas hillside. In a heartbeat, a fiery explosion tore through the mist, flames swallowing everything in their path. Kobe, Gianna, and everyone on board were gone. What followed was silence, then a tidal wave of grief that swept across the globe. Millions mourned not only the Black Mamba, but also the bright young daughter who carried his fire, his legacy, and his love for the game. It was a tragic reminder that even legends can be taken far too soon. Rasul Butler and Leah LaBelle, 2 radiant souls whose love story felt written in the stars. Rasul, the NBA sharpshooter feared for his precision from beyond the arc, and Leah, the soulful songbird who first stole America's heart on American Idol. Together, they were more than a couple. They were a vision of modern perfection, talent, beauty, and devotion entwined in a fairy tale romance. But destiny had a crueler script. On the night of January 31, 2018, their story came to a devastating end. Speeding through the Los Angeles streets, their car spun out of control. Tires screamed, metal buckled, and in one violent instant, their vehicle slammed into a concrete pillar. The glass exploded, the car flipped, and the couple who once seemed unstoppable were left lifeless in the wreckage. When investigators revealed that Rasul had been under the influence of alcohol and drugs, the heartbreak only deepened. What should have been a lifetime of promise became a haunting cautionary tale. 2 dazzling lives, one that soared on the basketball court, the other that soared on stage, were extinguished in mere seconds. In the end, love bound them not only in life, but also in their final breath. Their story remains etched in memory, a tale of brilliance, passion, and a loss so sudden it left the world in stunned silence, reminding us all how fragile even the brightest stars can be. Sam Cooke, the father of soul, didn't just sing, he defined an era. With an angelic voice and revolutionary spirit, he gave the world timeless anthems like "A Change Is Gonna Come" and "You Send Me." He wasn't only a chart-topping star, he was a trailblazer, fighting for justice, equality, and a new sound that forever changed music. At the height of his career, Cooke was dreaming bigger than ever, building his own record label, planning new projects, and reaching for even greater triumphs. But fate had a chilling ending written for him. On December 11, 1964, in a shabby Los Angeles motel, the music fell silent. A heated struggle erupted. A gunshot rang out. Within moments, Sam Cooke, the shining voice of a generation, lay lifeless on the cold floor. It felt like a scene torn from a Hollywood noir, sudden, brutal, and surreal. The motel manager, Bertha Franklin, insisted she fired in self-defense. But was it really that simple? Behind the headlines lurked whispers of financial conspiracies, dangerous entanglements, and the heavy price of fame. To this day, the shadows surrounding that night refused to lift. What the world lost that night was more than a man. It lost a genius, a pioneer, a voice that cannot be replaced. Though Sam Cooke's life was cut short, his songs, his final symphony, continue to echo through time, carrying his spirit into eternity. Otis Redding. His story is one of brilliance cut short. From the dazzling glare of fame to the chilling silence of tragedy, he reigned as the undisputed king of soul. Otis wasn't just a singer, he was a storm, a voice that could move mountains and mend broken hearts. With anthems like Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay, Respect, and Try a Little Tenderness, he didn't simply perform. He reached deep into the soul of every listener and refused to let go. But just as his star blazed its brightest, darkness struck. On December 10, 1967, Otis and his band boarded a Beechcraft H-18 bound for their next show. Thick fog cloaked the skies, engines coughed a final desperate roar, and in a heartbeat, the plane plunged into the icy waters of Lake Monona. The calm lake erupted into chaos, swallowing metal and dreams whole. Almost everyone on board perished instantly. Only trumpeter Ben Cauley survived, clinging to wreckage as he watched his brothers vanish beneath the freezing waves. Otis was just 26. Days earlier, he had recorded Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay, a haunting masterpiece destined to become his swan song. His death didn't just silence a voice, it carved an emptiness in the hearts of millions. A flame extinguished far too soon, leaving behind a legacy as bittersweet as the final, fading notes of his greatest hit. Marvin Gaye, the Prince of Motown whose voice carried both tenderness and truth, was more than a superstar. He was a prophet of sound, channeling raw emotion into timeless anthems like What's Going On, Let's Get It On, and I Heard It Through the Grapevine. His songs weren't just hits, they were confessions, love letters, and battle cries for justice. But while the world danced to his music, Marvin's personal life was unraveling behind closed doors, plagued by inner demons and a family bond that grew increasingly fragile. On April 1, 1984, the world's heartbeat skipped forever. Inside his Los Angeles home, a fierce argument with his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., spiraled into something unthinkable. The air was thick with rage until, in one devastating moment, a gun was raised. A single shot shattered the silence. Marvin collapsed, his extraordinary life extinguished instantly. The house that had once held laughter and music became a scene of unbearable sorrow. And with that shot, the world didn't just lose a singer, it lost a voice that spoke for generations, a soul who turned pain into poetry, and a man whose music became the soundtrack of our deepest emotions. Tupac Shakur, the voice of a generation, silenced forever on a blood-stained Las Vegas night. Known for timeless anthems like Dear Mama, Changes, and California Love, Tupac was more than a rapper. He was a poet, a revolutionary, and a fearless symbol of defiance against a world that often sought to break him. At the height of his career, with the world awaiting his next masterpiece, the Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory, Tupac found himself consumed by escalating rivalries and dangerous feuds. Then came the night that would change everything. September 7, 1996. A sleek black BMW glided beneath the neon blaze of the Vegas Strip. Inside sat Tupac and his companion, unaware that destiny was closing in. A car crept up alongside, windows lowering into the darkness. In a heartbeat, silence shattered. A hail of gunfire ripped through the night, for bullets tearing into Tupac's body as chaos erupted all around. Sirens wailed, crowds screamed, but it was already too late. To this day, the truth remains tangled in mystery. Was it the fallout of hip-hop's deadly feuds? A hidden enemy lurking in the shadows? Or part of a deeper, darker conspiracy? No answers have ever come. What is certain, however, is that the world lost a legend at the very moment he was poised to redefine it. Tupac's flame was extinguished far too soon, leaving behind not just music, but an eternal echo of what might have been, a haunting reminder that greatness is never guaranteed tomorrow. The Notorious B.I.G., an East Coast rap giant whose life was cut short in brutal tragedy. To the world, he was Biggie Smalls, a lyrical mastermind who captivated millions with his hypnotic flow and raw storytelling in anthems like Juicy and Big Papa. Yet behind the fame burned a storm. His bitter feud with Tupac Shakur and the raging East Coast-West Coast rivalry pulled him deeper into a world where power was measured in bullets and survival was never guaranteed. That storm reached its breaking point on a cold, drizzling night, March 9, 1997. Biggie's SUV rolled to a quiet stop at a Los Angeles intersection. In that split second, he had no idea death was lurking in the shadows. A gunman stepped from the dark, raised his weapon, and fired a hail of bullets through the glass. Inside the car, the music kept playing, transformed into a haunting requiem for hip-hop's king. Within minutes, the world was shaken. News of Biggie's murder spread like wildfire, leaving the hip-hop community paralyzed with shock and grief. His death wasn't just a loss, it was the bloody exclamation point on the East Coast-West Coast war. And then, just weeks later, fate added one last twist: the release of Life After Death, an album that turned Christopher Wallace into more than an artist, into an immortal. A legend may have fallen that night, but Biggie's voice never did. His name still echoes in every beat, every rhyme, and every story told about hip-hop's golden age. His legacy didn't end at that street corner. It lives forever. Nipsey Hussle was far more than a rapper. He was a light in the darkness, a symbol of resilience, and the beating heart of South Los Angeles. Born Ermias Askedam, he climbed from the streets of Crenshaw to the heights of hip-hop, with projects like The Marathon and his Grammy-nominated masterpiece Victory Lap. But music was only one part of his mission. Nipsey poured his soul into rebuilding his community, opening businesses, investing in education, and inspiring young people to chase greatness through entrepreneurship and self-empowerment. Yet on March 31, 2019, beneath the relentless California sun, that vision was shattered in an instant. Outside his Marathon clothing store, the very cornerstone of his dream, Nipsey was gunned down by Eric Holder, a man from his own neighborhood. The sound of gunfire silenced a voice that had become a lifeline for so many. Crenshaw erupted in chaos and grief, the cries of shock and heartbreak echoing across the streets he had worked so hard to uplift. His death was more than a tragedy, it was a cruel betrayal, a wound that cut through the soul of a community and the music world alike. But while his life was stolen, his legacy refuses to die. Nipsey Hussle remains a dreamer, a builder, and a changemaker. His vision still beats like a drum across Los Angeles and far beyond, echoing in every young soul he inspired, in every block he uplifted, and in every dream that dares to continue the marathon. Phyllis Hyman, a voice that soared, a soul consumed by sorrow. With her rare contralto, she carved a place in music history, gifting the world timeless treasures like You Know How to Love Me and Living All Alone. On Broadway, in Sophisticated Ladies, she didn't just sing, she spellbound, commanding every spotlight, holding entire audiences captive with a single note. But behind the glamour, the woman who glowed on stage was quietly unraveling. The heartbreak of a failed marriage, the crushing weight of loneliness, and the shadows of despair gnawed at her spirit, demons the stage lights could never chase away. On June 30, 1995, in the stillness of her bedroom, her anguish reached its breaking point. Surrounded by silence, Phyllis sought escape in a final act that stilled her forever. Her last letter, written in trembling hands, revealed the unbearable weight of her torment, a cry from a heart too heavy to carry on. That day, the world lost more than a singer. It lost a woman who gave everything to her art, yet found no refuge from her pain. Phyllis Hyman's passing remains a haunting reminder of the battles fought in silence, the loneliness no applause could erase. And yet, her voice lingers, soulful, soaring, unforgettable, etched forever in the hearts of those who loved her. Jimi Hendrix, the guitar god whose fingers turned Woodstock and Monterey pop into blazing infernos, was more than a musician, he was a force of nature. With albums like Are You Experienced and Electric Ladyland, Hendrix didn't just play rock, he reinvented it. His sound was untamed, raw, and otherworldly, a thunderbolt that still shakes the foundations of music history. Yet behind the dazzling solos and the wild applause, Jimi wrestled with demons that no audience could see. That unstoppable fire, that boundless spirit, came crashing down on September 18, 1970. In a quiet London flat, he was found lifeless, barbiturates, empty bottles, and silent evidence of a final battle scattered around him. He was just 27. In that moment, Hendrix became part of the infamous 27 Club, a haunting roll call of brilliance stolen too soon. His death was a gut punch felt around the world, an echo of loss that still lingers more than half a century later. Yet even as his voice went silent, his music never did. Every riff, every howl from his guitar still testifies to a genius who lived fast, burned brighter than anyone before him, and left a legacy too powerful to ever fade. Whitney Houston, a dazzling star swallowed by the shadows. She wasn't just a singer, she was the voice. A soaring soprano that gifted the world with anthems like I Will Always Love You and I Wanna Dance with Somebody. Her brilliance, beauty, and artistry made her a global icon, adored everywhere she went. But behind the cheers and flashing lights, her world was quietly falling apart. On February 11, 2012, time seemed to freeze. The shocking headline spread: Whitney Houston was gone. Found lifeless beside the bathtub in her Beverly Hilton hotel suite. Water spilled across the tiles, pill bottles scattered on the floor, and somewhere in the silence, her music still played, a chilling echo to her final moments. The truth soon followed. The autopsy revealed heart disease, worsened by cocaine, had claimed her life. It wasn't just the end of a legendary career. It was the loss of a woman whose voice had defined love, strength, and vulnerability for millions. Though the spotlight dimmed that night, Whitney's voice remains eternal. Every note she ever sang still floats through time, a haunting and beautiful reminder of a star who burned too brightly for this world, even as the shadows closed in. Bobbi Kristina Brown. A name that carried the weight of destiny. As the only daughter of Whitney Houston, she wasn't just seen as a child of a superstar, she was viewed as the heir to a legacy, a living reminder of her mother's unmatched brilliance. Even though Bobbi Kristina never fully pursued a career in music, she was always there, glowing beside Whitney, whether under the blinding lights of the stage or in the quiet love of fans who adored their unbreakable bond. But when Whitney's sudden passing left the world in shock, Bobbi Kristina's own life began to unravel. Grief, heartbreak, and turbulent relationships pulled her into a storm she could not escape. And then, in a chilling twist that felt almost too cruel to be real, history repeated itself. On January 31, 2015, Bobbi Kristina was found unconscious in the bathtub of her home, a haunting echo of her mother's final moments. The water was cold, her face pale, and though doctors fought desperately, her fate seemed tragically sealed. For 6 long months she lingered between worlds, suspended in silence, until at just 22 years old, she breathed her last. Her passing carved an unhealable wound into the hearts of those who loved her and left the world stunned by the unbearable symmetry of fate. 2 stars, mother and daughter, gone too soon, bound forever by love, music, and sorrow. Michael Jackson, the heartbreaking final chapter of the King of Pop. Michael Jackson wasn't just a star, he was a phenomenon who forever changed the face of music, dance, and entertainment. With groundbreaking albums like Thriller, Bad, and Dangerous, he soared to heights no artist had ever touched. Every moonwalk, every electrifying note became woven into the very DNA of pop culture. But behind the dazzling lights and roaring crowds, his world was unraveling, crushed beneath relentless media scrutiny, suffocating fame, and accusations that weighed heavily on his soul. In his final days, Michael was preparing for his great comeback, the This Is It Tour. It was meant to be his triumphant return, a chance to reclaim the crown. The world waited in breathless anticipation. But then came June 25, 2009. Inside his Los Angeles mansion, Michael was discovered unresponsive, the sterile scent of propofol lingering in the air. Machines beeped frantically, doctors fought to revive him, but nothing could stop the inevitable. Under the watch of his physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, the king of pop slipped away forever. The news sent shockwaves across the globe. Millions wept as the world lost not just a musical genius, but a piece of its collective heart. His death marked the tragic close of a life that burned too brightly, too painfully. Yet, even in silence, his legacy thunders on, an eternal flame that refuses to fade. Fans still sing his songs, still dance his moves, and still believe in the magic of Michael Jackson. Prince wasn't just a musician, he was a force of nature, an untouchable icon who seemed larger than life itself. With masterpieces like Purple Rain, Kiss, and When Doves Cry, he didn't just make music, he redefined it, tearing down every boundary that dared to limit art, identity, or culture. Yet, behind the thunder of his guitar and the blaze of stage lights, Prince fought a silent, private war. Chronic pain gnawed at him, and to keep creating, to keep dazzling the world, he turned to powerful painkillers. Then came the day the unthinkable happened. On April 21, 2016, inside the very walls of Paisley Park, his sacred palace of creativity, the music stopped. He was found lifeless, the glow of his piano casting long shadows over a devastating scene. His pale face, the scattered pills, and the deadly counterfeit fentanyl told a chilling story the world never wanted to hear. In those final moments, the man who once electrified millions was left battling pain too great to bear, until silence claimed him. Prince's death wasn't just the fall of a superstar, it was a brutal reminder of the crushing weight carried by the greatest artists. Even the brightest light, the one that lit up the world with sound and vision, can be dimmed by suffering hidden in the shadows. Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther hero who fought a war no one could see. Known for electrifying performances in 42, Get On Up, and the groundbreaking Black Panther, Boseman was more than a Hollywood star. He became a living symbol of pride, resilience, and unshakable hope for the Black community. Yet, beyond the spotlight, he carried a secret so heavy it would silence most men. Since 2016, Chadwick had been battling stage 4 colon cancer. He endured grueling treatments, hidden pain, and sleepless nights, all while giving every ounce of his soul to the roles that inspired millions. On the quiet evening of August 28, 2020, in his Los Angeles home, that battle came to its final chapter. The room was dim, the soft glow of his laptop casting shadows across the walls. In his hands, he still clutched the script for his last film, a warrior refusing to surrender until the very end. When his loved ones found him, silence hung thick in the air, broken only by the ticking of a clock. It was a haunting reminder that time had claimed a shining star. The world didn't just lose an actor that night, it lost an irreplaceable hero. A man who carried the weight of pain in private, yet gave the world nothing but strength, beauty, and hope. His light went out far too soon, but his legacy will never fade. Bernie Mac, the comedy giant whose thunderous laughter could shake a room, was silenced by a storm no joke could chase away. From the Bernie Mac Show to scene-stealing roles in Ocean's 11 and Mr. 3000, he didn't just perform, he commanded. With a single glance, a raised brow, or a raw punchline, Bernie turned everyday truths into unforgettable comedy. He was more than an entertainer. He was resilience. He was honesty. He was heart. But behind that booming voice and unshakable swagger, Bernie was waging a hidden war. Sarcoidosis, a cruel, invisible illness, gnawed at his body even as he kept the world laughing. On August 9, 2008, inside a Chicago hospital, the battle reached its end. The hiss of the ventilator whispered like the final beat of a weary drum. Doctors fought desperately, but the storm within him proved too strong. When Bernie Mac drew his last breath, the world's laughter dimmed. Hollywood lost not only a legend of comedy, but a rare spirit whose truth cut deeper than any script, whose humor reached far beyond the stage. His absence left a silence so heavy, it could never truly be filled. Heavy D, the hip-hop icon whose music defined an era, was silenced by a cruel twist of fate. In the 1990s, his smooth flow and groundbreaking hits like Now That We Found Love and Is It Good to You made him more than just a rapper. He was a visionary producer who reshaped the sound of hip-hop forever. But the rhythm of his remarkable journey ended in the most unexpected and heartbreaking way. On November 8, 2011, after returning home from a long flight from London, Heavy D felt an exhaustion that seemed unusual, even for a man constantly on the move. As he lay down to rest, an invisible killer struck. A sudden, stabbing pain tore through his chest. It was a pulmonary embolism, silent and merciless, triggered by the flight itself. Within moments, the larger-than-life energy that had once moved millions was gone. Despite desperate efforts to save him, nothing could bring Heavy D back. His shocking and untimely death didn't just close the book on a legendary career. It left the world with a haunting reminder: no matter how brightly the spotlight shines, life's flame can be extinguished in an instant. James Brown, the godfather of soul. The man whose unstoppable energy gave the world anthems like I Got You, I Feel Good, and Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. He wasn't just a performer, he was a revolution set to rhythm. With every scream, every split, every electrifying step across the stage, Brown redefined what it meant to be alive in music. His fire-charged voice lit a path that generations of artists still follow today. But behind the glittering spotlight, his body was waging its own silent wars. Years of pneumonia and heart trouble slowly chipped away at the force that once shook entire arenas. Then, on Christmas morning in 2006, the unthinkable happened. In an Atlanta hospital room, James Brown drew his final breath. Each struggling inhale sounded like the last mournful note of a symphony that had once made the earth quake. Pneumonia and heart failure silenced the man who once made the world dance with joy. His passing wasn't just the loss of a legend, it was the closing of a curtain on an entire era. And in the silence that followed, millions were left with an emptiness no voice could ever fill. Aretha Franklin, the immortal queen of soul, ended her extraordinary journey not in triumph but in heartbreak and pain. With timeless anthems like Respect and I Say a Little Prayer, she wasn't just a singer, she was a force of nature, a voice that carried through 6 decades, lifting generations with its unmatched power and grace. Yet behind the curtain of glory, her final battle was cruel. 4 years, Aretha fought a private war against pancreatic cancer, a fight that drained her body but could never break her spirit. On August 16, 2018, beneath the heavy blaze of summer, the world stood still. News spread that in her Detroit home, the Queen had taken her final breath. Even as illness consumed her, she never surrendered. Her last public performance in November 2017 was living proof that her soul refused to bow to fate. In her final days, racked with relentless pain, she still clung to music. Loved ones recalled her faintly humming, as if whispering one last goodbye to the stage she adored. When the end came, silence filled the room, broken only by the ticking of a clock, each second a cruel reminder that time had claimed one of music's greatest icons. Aretha Franklin was gone. But her voice, her spirit, her soul, will forever echo across eternity. Naya Rivera wasn't just a star on Glee, she was a force of nature, a woman whose talent, beauty, and grace lit up every stage and screen she touched. As Santana Lopez, she gave a voice to millions, her powerful presence breaking barriers and her soulful voice leaving audiences breathless. From childhood, Naya was destined for the spotlight, but it was her final act, far away from cameras and applause, that forever defined her legacy. On July 8, 2020, what began as a joyful day at Lake Piru, California, turned into a heartbreaking tragedy. Naya and her little boy, Josie, set out on the water together. But when fierce currents threatened to pull them under, Naya's instincts as a mother took over. With every ounce of strength she had left, she fought against the unforgiving waves, pushing Josie to safety on the boat. And in that final, selfless act of love, she sacrificed her own life to ensure her son's survival. Her passing shattered the hearts of family, friends, and fans around the world. Yet her story endures as something greater than tragedy. It is the ultimate testament to a mother's unconditional love. A love so powerful, so unbreakable, that it chose her child's future over her own. Roger Troutman wasn't just a musician. He was the pulse, the very heartbeat of funk. As the genius behind the band Zapp, he delivered timeless anthems like Computer Love and More Bounce to the Ounce, songs that didn't just play on the radio but reshaped the future of R&B and hip-hop. His talkbox sound became the foundation for generations of artists who followed. But no one could have foreseen the tragic way his story would end. On April 25, 1999, in Dayton, Ohio, the unthinkable happened. Outside a recording studio, Roger was ambushed, not by a stranger, but by his own brother, Larry Troutman. A single gunshot shattered the silence, tearing apart not only a family but an entire musical legacy. Moments later, Larry turned the gun on himself inside a nearby car, leaving behind a scene steeped in grief, confusion, and unanswered questions. What could drive two brothers, once united by blood, music, and dreams, to such a devastating conclusion? Behind the brilliance of Roger's career were deep wounds, financial tensions, and unresolved pain that fame could never heal. His sudden death at just 47 didn't simply silence a man. It robbed the world of a funk icon and left one of music's most chilling reminders of how fragile family ties can become under the crushing weight of success. And then, as if fate hadn't taken enough, hip-hop would face another heartbreak. Dalla, a rising star, silenced before his time. Rapper Dalla, the rising voice behind tracks like Who the Heck Is That and Feelin' Myself, was on the verge of stardom. Signed to a major label, he stood at the edge of greatness, with fans waiting for the world to finally recognize his talent. But on May 18, 2009, his story was cut short in the most tragic way imaginable. Outside the crowded Beverly Center Mall, a heated argument turned deadly. Gunshots pierced the air, and as Dalla collapsed, time seemed to stand still. The man who pulled the trigger, Aubrey Berry, allegedly owed him more than $1 million. He fled the scene without hesitation, leaving behind a chilling reminder that in the world of fame, life can vanish in an instant. Dalla's death sent shockwaves through the music industry, adding his name to a heartbreaking list of black stars, artists, athletes, entertainers, whose brilliance was extinguished far too soon. They lived, they burned, but their endings came violently, suddenly, leaving behind unfinished songs, unwritten chapters, and dreams that will never be realized. Their loss is felt not only by their families, but by the worlds of music, film, and culture that will forever miss their light. Which of these untimely losses haunts you the most? Thank you for watching Exposed Hollywood. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue uncovering the heartbreaking stories hidden behind the glittering mask of fame.